All right, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is now 1:30. And I believe Councilmember Jurinsky is on. Oh, there's her video now. And then Councilmember Lawson is on. Thanks to everybody for joining. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Councilmembers Lawson and Jurinsky, any changes to the minutes, or if not, are you okay with approving those?
I approve.
I approve.
Okay, those are approved. Next up, Bill, July 2024 sales tax chart.
Great, thank you for having me again this month to talk about the sales tax chart. Candace, I think you may be trying to get to the chart. I think it's going to be very helpful this month to have it in front of you. As I tell you every month, I try not to focus on the particular month we're in, and this is a great example of why. So this month we can see, thank you, Candace, July sales tax was down 3% compared to July 2023. So with that, we are now $1.8 million below the budget. We are experiencing growth of about 5 million or 3% over 2023 when you add up all 7 months and compare it to the first 7 months of last year. So solid but not spectacular growth. Again, the 3%. I guess my story for you is I don't want anyone to take that as a bad number. I want you instead to take that as a very predictable number. So as you look at the chart here, I want to tell a story and make sure that this story makes sense to everyone. We had a change this year whereby some annual payers and some quarterly payers were switched because they were too large in terms of the amount of taxes that they owed. They were too large, and so they were moved to all be monthly payers. And so I want to talk about the quarterly payers specifically. So if you are a quarterly taxpayer, you do your sales in January, February, and March. And when March closes, then in April, you say, hey, in the first 3 months, I made this much sales, and so I owe you this much in sales tax. And so you make your submission in April. So you can see when that happened this year, we had a negative month. That's the negative 3.1% in April, where all those quarterly payers. But again, remember, a bunch of quarterly payers went to monthly. So those payers who did that started to submit not only in April for their first 3 months, they submitted in February, they submitted in March. So we saw those months be greater because they were essentially new monthly payers. So when we compare to last year, they weren't paying in February and March last year. This year they were. We saw good months. When we got to the quarterly payments, they were no longer quarterly payers, so they were spreading out the taxes that they paid. So the amount that the quarterly payers paid in April was essentially 1/12 of their annual liability instead of 1/4 of their annual liability. So we saw those quarterly months be disappointing, and we saw the non-quarterly months be positive. And when we look at the second quarter, we see the exact same pattern. So May and June were really strong. We had new payers who used to be quarterly now paying. And then that month where we normally collect quarterly payments was disappointing. That's the 3% for July. So there, to me, is a very predictable pattern. I would expect that same pattern to hold for the upcoming months for the rest of the year. So I'm only going to be concerned when I see one of the next 2 months be really poor. But I'm not concerned when I see this month because it very much was predictable and very much fits the pattern of what we've done and how we've adjusted the timing schedule for some of our taxpayers. So I hope that makes sense, but that's sort of my reading into it. Again, we're sitting at 3%. I do expect that to go up over the next 2 months, as we most likely will have positive months before hitting yet another disappointing month in October. So that's all I wanted to talk about this month. I know you have a lot on your schedule, but I'm happy to answer any questions about that and hope that explanation made some sense.
Yep, it did. Thanks for that explanation. Council members Jurinsky or Lawson, any questions on this chart?
No questions for me.
Same.
All right, thanks, Bill, for the presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you, committee.
All right, item 4A, Greg Hayes, proposed 2025 changes to service fees.
Absolutely. And in an effort to try to make myself as useless as possible in the budget office, I now have Richard Goggins doing the service fee, so I'm going to turn it over to him.
All right.
All right. Hello, everyone. Richard Goggins, budget office with more budget things. So as part of the annual budget process, departments review the city's service fees, and these were previously referred to as administrative fees to determine which fees may require adjustments or elimination. So these fees are all assumed in the annual budget. The 2025 service fee review process continues the use of fee indexing, and this was directed by council and implemented during the 2007 service fee review process. So this year, the 2025 fees are indexed using a 4.8% inflation factor, and this is derived from the employment cost index for state and local government compensation. So most of the fees were indexed. 11 bullets do explain when fees were below the index. There are 8 bullets that explain when changes were greater than the index. There are also 6 bullets that explain when fees were moved, added, or eliminated. And impact fees are also included, and each include their own index, which can be found on the last page of the packet. And so this is just for information only and to get your feedback. It does not require a vote and does not need to go to a formal council meeting, but it will be part of the fun Saturday budget workshop packet in October. So that's it for me. Departments are available if you have any questions.
Thanks for the overview. My only question is on the index that we're using. I guess, how long has that index been in place? Is it been the same index since 2007? And I guess, do we still think that's the most appropriate index? Is it more or less volatile than other options? I guess just trying to get a sense of, like, is it most appropriate, I guess.
We have been using the same index for quite a while. It makes a lot of sense because we're mostly people, and it's the compensation. It's government, basically government compensation fee. So it very much fits in the same bubble that we all live in.
Yeah.
So I would think that it's the correct fee. Now all the impact fees, the capital impact fees, have different ones. Each one has a different one based on what its driver is.
Got it. Okay. Council members Lawson or Jurinsky, any questions on this?
No questions for me.
None for me.
All right. Thanks for the presentation. Appreciate it. Let's see. Let me get back to my agenda. All right. Next item up. South Aurora Regional Improvement Authority Service Plan Amendments. Chesarina Dancy.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Chesarina Dancy, Manager of Development Assistance for the city. I do have a brief presentation to share on this item. Hopefully everyone can see that. So the item today is a request for service plan amendments to many of the metropolitan districts within Surrey. So what is Surrey? Surrey is a cooperative of metropolitan districts in Southeast Aurora that was created to finance regional transportation improvements. Surrey was formed in 2017 and currently consists of 22 metropolitan districts, 17 of which are requesting amendments to their service plans. These service plan amendments that are being requested are limited to the language about the ARI, the Aurora Regional Improvement language. Here's a map showing highlighted in orange the location of the member districts of Surrey. Moving into the ARI mill levy language. The ARI language was incorporated into the city's model service plan in 2004. So every service plan in the city that has been approved from 2004 forward has this language. The purpose of the ARI is to fund the planning, design, construction, and financing of regional street and transportation improvements. With the ARI language, metropolitan districts have 3 options for managing ARI funds, and these are in our model service plan as well. Option 1 is they can convey the funds directly to the city. Option 2 is to enter into an IGA with the city, directing the use of funds, or option 3 is to establish or join an authority with 3 or more districts, and forward from that, the authority directs the use of those ARI funds. This is a summary of the language that is currently in our model service plan around the ARI mill levy structure. It's divided into residential and commercial. The very similar, but commercial has slightly different language. I'll walk you through the residential. It is a tiered system. So tier 1 is 1 ARI mill in years 1 to 20. Tier 2 is 5 mills for years 21 to 40, or the year of debt repayment, whichever would come first. And then tier 3 is the average of the last 10 years of debt service mills in years 41 to 50. With these amendments that are being proposed, we're able to group them by likeness of current circumstances and the amendment language that's being requested. So this group 1 consists of member districts with residents and either have no current debt mill levy or a current debt mill levy greater than 30 mills. The amendment that is being proposed for these districts, tiers 1 and 2 are unchanged, no amendment there. The amendment comes with tier 3, which would fix the mills at 30. The districts in this group are Forest Trace, numbers 1 and 3, Inspiration, and Pronghorn Valley. And the numbers that you see here, that is the current debt mill levy that these districts currently have today. Moving on to group 2, these would be member districts with current debt mill levies less than 30 mills. Again, no changes proposed to tiers 1 or 2. Tier 3 would either be the lesser of 30 mills or the 2023-2024 debt service mill levy. The districts that are included in this grouping are Beacon Point, Blackstone, Sorrel Ranch, Southlands, number 2, Wheatlands, and Whispering Pines, number 1. And again, with their current mill levies listed. Group 3 are member districts that have no residents and no current debt mill levy. These service plans would be amended. Excuse me, tier 1 and 2 would be a fixed 5 mills, and tier 3 would be a fixed 30 mills. Those are Kings Point South, numbers 1 to 3, Overlook at Kings Point South, and Prairie Point districts, numbers 1 to 3. Group 4 are the SREA member districts who are not proposing service plan amendments at this time. That is Forest Trace number 2 and CNAC South, numbers 1 to 4. In addition to these service plan amendments, there are 4 accompanying IGAs. The Transportation Impact Fee Agreement you will hear presented after this item to the committee would also be concurrent with any council process on these amendments. The IGAs for Gun Club Road, Aurora Parkway improvements, and the Gartrell Road improvement projects will be presented at the next TAPS committee meeting. So for next steps, should the committee choose to move these items forward to council, the service plan amendments and transportation impact fee IGA would be presented at study session in city council on September 9th. The project IGAs will be presented at TAPS on September 19th, and the second reading of ordinances approving the service plan amendments on September 23rd. I am happy to take any questions. We also have Tom George on, who is legal counsel for SREA. He also has a brief presentation, so I'm happy to take questions, or if you'd like to hear from Tom first, and then we can collectively take the questions.
So maybe we'll do questions on this presentation, then let's hear from Tom, and then we can go from there. So first question I had on timeline, why dual listing on September 9th? What's the rush for the timeline?
The rush, the SREA, and Tom may be able to speak more to this, but it was requested due to some uncertainties coming up with Initiative 50 as well as the presidential election. And given that these are ordinances, there is a reconsideration period after the ordinances, so they aren't fully in effect the night council approves.
Okay. So one of my concerns, and maybe it's somewhat related to that, just the compressed timeline, is, and I guess I'll phrase this in the form of a question. What outreach have the member metro districts of Soria done to their residents? And I don't know who the best person to answer that question is. Full disclosure, I am a resident in one of these metro districts. And I can tell you the only thing that I've gotten is the official notice that September 9th, this is going to be in front of city council. That's literally all I've gotten. Beyond that, it's been a bunch of neighbors asking me questions, posts on Nextdoor and on Facebook and whatever. I've heard nothing from my Metro District Board. And so it feels like there has been little to no communication. And so when I hear from residents that say, you know, that question this, it makes me sympathetic to them having concerns, right? Because they haven't heard anything either. This is really complex, right? And, you know, when you buy your house, yes, there's disclosures in there. In a perfect world, we would all read and memorize those disclosures. I think we can all acknowledge on this call that doesn't happen. And so I guess the compressed timeline concerns me. And so I would like to know what type of outreach has been done by the member metropolitan districts to their residents to really explain why this is happening, what the onus is for this, because there's a lot of rumors flying and a lot of it isn't really the truth. But I'll just be honest, it puts city council in a really crappy position to provide cover for the metro districts, for Soria, to have to explain something that frankly isn't our job, isn't our responsibility. It's the metro district job. It's Soria's job. And you know, if you want my support to do that, then I want to know what you've done to help that process along, I guess. So that's a long-winded way of asking what outreach has been done to residents for member metro districts. And so I don't know who the best person to answer that question is.
Yeah, totally understood on the question. So we do have Tom on as a representative of Surrey as a whole. We also have representatives of each metro district on the call. Now that can vary. It may be legal representation. It may be someone from the board. So, but we do have someone from these districts on the call. So, you know, Tom, I don't know if you want to speak at a high level about any outreach that's been done. Obviously, the city and city staff are not involved in those board meetings and metro district operations.
Sure, happy to. Jurinsky, can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Great. Good afternoon, Councilman Curtis. This is Tom George of Spencer Fane, and as Jurinsky said, I'm an attorney at Spencer Fane. We are legal counsel to the authority, to Soria. I see it, for example, Aaron Jones is a Blackstone resident and board member and is a board member on Soria. So Soria's board is comprised of appointees from each of the member districts. I personally can't speak on efforts of each individual district, but let me give you a summary of at least what we've done from the Soria side of this over the past couple of years. And then I can give you some examples anecdotally, at least, and then maybe if other specific representatives would like to give examples of what they've done in their districts. This effort to amend the service plans is very, very limited. I mean, it is limited in scope in that we're only changing the ARI mill levy as it's defined in the 2004 model service plans that's been in place in the city of Aurora since 2004, and each of these member districts has. We started talking about this in late 2022. All through 2023 is when we had dialogue at the Soria level and with the representatives of the different districts on what perhaps we could do to correct some of the ambiguities and complexities of the ARI mill levy. In late 23, right in August, actually, we about almost exactly a year ago gave a presentation to the Soria board on this concept of changing the ARI mill levy, like Jurinsky just presented. That was approved unanimously by that Soria board and all the member representatives. We then kind of went on a bit of a roadshow and went to board meetings of all of the member districts that requested us to attend. and gave the same presentation essentially to those boards and anybody that attended those board meetings, so that they could ask questions and understand it there. In between about August and January of 24, so going back a year ago, each one of those boards then approved a resolution to approve this proposed service plan amendment, and authorize SREA to bundle these and bring them forward to where we are now. I do know that a few of the member districts have had board meetings. They've had, their Metro District board meetings, discussions. There have been some email blasts that have gone out, and they all have their own unique ways to communicate with their constituents. So I'll let maybe a few of them answer that question on behalf of their districts.
Okay, so I know there's going to be a lot of folks that are going to want to talk. So kind of what I want to do, if folks want to respond, we'll raise hands. We'll go in that order. Please limit your comments very briefly, because there's going to be a lot of comments here. But real quickly, just to respond to that, Tom, I appreciate that. I understand this change is somewhat limited in scope. But we do this every day. You all do this every day. The residents don't. And I think that's, I guess, what I'm trying to communicate. If all they get is that official notice in the mail, they don't know what the heck that means. And so I'm just trying to get a sense of like, what do they know, or what have they been told beyond just that official notice? So I appreciate the response, and that's really what I'm trying to get a sense of. So let's go next to Aaron from Blackstone.
Yes, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So just quick highlight, not well coverage, not well understanding in education. I think we've learned more in the last 2 months, and I would say the existing community is known for the better part of 5 or 6 years, if not further. So that's concern number one. I think concern number two, the level of data available if you did the research was very limited and non-public, and that I know that the board, I being a representative of that, is trying to fix that, but it's kind of at the 11th hour, the 11th day. So I would tell you that there is not good education. And as we've talked to other communities, we're hearing the same comment that it's not well understood. Now that there's contention coming on with some of these initiatives that are up for vote, and hence now the firestorm that's kind of ensued around this, that has got a lot of people confused, up in arms, and don't quite understand the legalities, the commitments, or otherwise the benefit that all communities would bring, knowing that not every community in these areas where these investments are going are getting the true benefit or are contributing to the benefit of that, where some are and others are not. I'll yield the floor. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Aaron. Next, Bob Laguerre, I believe, representing Inspiration. Is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you. So our board and finance committee has been familiar with this for quite a few months from when it was first discussed. And when the notice from the city came out, we did an e-blast to all of our residents, which is how we communicate with them, explaining the basically what's happening. And really the bottom line from our perspective is that this mill levy is something that we all signed on to when we bought our homes in the district. So this particular change that's being made here doesn't affect that, other than to solidify what happens in the far out years where it's fixed at 30 mills. So, but to quickly answer your question, we did the outreach via email blast, which is our way of communicating. And to my knowledge, we've had very little inquiry about what this is about. And maybe that's because we send e-blast, but it hasn't been an issue in our particular community.
All right.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Councilmember Bergen.
Thank you, Councilmember Gardner. Just clarification from Cesarina, please. I know it is very confusing, as Councilmember Gardner said, to most residents. So there's a question of why aren't all the metropolitan districts in our area participating? So if you could just explain, I know, 2004 is when ARI was established, but maybe you could just quickly answer that.
Certainly. Just to clarify, why are all districts not participating in SREA or in the ARI mill levy, or both?
why they're not participating in ARI at all.
Okay, so if a service plan was approved prior to 2004, there is no ARI requirement in their service plan. So there are quite a few, even though perhaps the first homes were built many years later, there are quite a few districts in the area that have service plans that predate 2004.
Okay, and then my second question on just clarification again. I think I heard Tom George say that when through these meetings that they have signed resolutions from the different districts.
Yes, that's in your backup. So as with
Right.
any service plan amendment, we would have make a request to process. The board does sign a resolution consenting and requesting the service plan. So that is all in your backup for all 17 districts requesting the amendments.
Okay, and then as you showed in the slides, some districts are going to stay under the 30 mils, and some that are higher than 30 mils will go down to the flat 30 mils.
That's
that right?
correct. Yeah, here I can reshare this. It might just help to have the visual. So for this grouping of districts, yes, their mills would be fixed at a flat 30 in that tier 3. So for example, Forest Trace number 3 right now is at fixed 56.44. So that would go to a flat 30.
Okay. And then just on the projects, you mentioned 3 of them. I thought there were a few more. So I guess my question is, if they were to go out to the bond market successfully to get more funding to be able to complete the projects, is there a possibility that any other regional road improvements could get added in?
So I'll let Tom speak a little bit to that, but the SREA establishing agreement approved 10 projects. So that is all they are authorized to do. I believe 5 of the 10 are completed. To do anything beyond those 10 would require an amendment to that establishing agreement, which again, all of the boards of the districts that are part of SREA would agree to.
Okay, because I have 2 more that were not completed that weren't mentioned, because the only ones that were mentioned were Gun Club, Aurora Parkway, and Gartrell Bridge. But would the other 2 on the list still, I guess they're still in the agreement as potential projects?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. I think that's it for me right now. Thank you.
Okay, so first I'm going to check with, I see Mayor Kaufman joined. I don't know, Mayor Kaufman, if you have questions, or if either of the other council members, Jurinsky or Lawson, if you have questions at this point before we proceed with additional Metro District representatives.
Thank you, Mr.
Councilmember
Chairman.
Gardner.
This is just very helpful.
Councilmember Gardner, can I just ask a quick question to Cesarina, please, just for my own knowledge here? So Cesarina, you mentioned that this has to be done before the presidential election. Can you tell me what's the nexus to that? Why does it have to be done by the presidential election? Is it because it's the potential questions that are going to come up on our bond if we don't get things settled in the legislature, or what?
So I will defer to Tom for this. This was a request made by SREA to do what we could to accommodate their timeline. So I'll let him speak to the reasons behind that request.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Justina. Thank you, Councilmember Lawson. It's not about the presidential election so much as Initiative 50 and Proposition 108 on the general election ballot on November 5th.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And that's going to be depending, because they are trying to do some resolution on that at the legislature. So will that be kind of dependent in the next 3 days of what the outcomes of that is? And that could change your timeline potentially?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we were looking at this, 30, 45 days ago. Things are changing daily on all this. And the issue was that, if Initiative 50 or Prop 108 were on the ballot and passed, we were looking at, from the local government perspective, maybe an impossibility of issuing bonds and debt, period, in Colorado before the election and certainly after. And so in order to get ahead of that, for SREA to be able to preserve its ability to finance projects, we needed to get this done before November 5th. That absolutely could change if in fact it does with the legislature this week.
Okay, thank you, Tom. I appreciate their addressing my question.
Mayor Kaufman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my question to Tom is that, so we're gonna know very soon, given the special session, if there's an agreement. If there is an agreement, then does that buy you more? What does that do if there's an agreement in the legislature? Or do you have to wait to see if something passes the ballot, or are you just waiting to see if there's an agreement? And I realize that came up very soon. This notion of a special session that the governor called. So how does that, and I think it doesn't follow on to Councilmember Lawson's question.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Kaufman. It's a good question. It does help us and it doesn't. It does in the sense that if the two ballot measures are pulled from the ballot, we don't have that as an issue. The timeline, as you know, in municipal government, local government laws is complicated in that to hit. And Aurora Municipal Code requires us to have a public hearing on the service plan amendments. We have to publish notice and mail notice at least 20 days before that. And then with your ordinance process taking 2 meetings in that 30-day period after the ordinance before someone could challenge it, we wouldn't be able to issue debt until after that 30-day window is passed, or I should say even price bonds. And so there's a timeline associated with that. So it gets to be a pretty longer timeline than you'd think, right, to get that all done. And that's why we are where we are today, is we had to back up all the way into August, mail those notices out, which we did. We mailed almost 10,000 notices to property owners and taxing entities in South Aurora. So that's been done for September 9th. So we'd buy some time with the November 5th, ballot measures we were looking at by those coming off. But again, we have these other timelines we're trying to fit in as well.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yeah, just kind of follow up on your Councilmember Gardner, your question earlier on disclosure. And I have also obviously heard from a lot of constituents that were unaware that they were part of the ARI. So I guess my question is, because you have new districts that don't have residents yet. So I think well, yes, I know we have made improvements from 2004 in changes in city council for better disclosure. Can you speak to that? So, I mean, we just make sure that residents, that are buying homes understand what they're getting into.
Yeah, certainly. So there have been over the last several years a few things that we have added to our service plan to improve both transparency and disclosure. Speaking to the disclosure specifically, we do have an attachment to the model service plan that anyone requesting a new service plan is required to complete, basically giving a mock value of a home and breaking down what the mills would look like for both being part of a metro district and the ARI. There's a requirement on new communities for disclosures to be hung in the sales trailer. We field a lot of questions from potential home buyers as well that reach out to our office to discuss metro districts. Ultimately, everything is disclosed at closing. As far as, they tell you what school district you're a part of, what library district and things like that. And it is also disclosed at that time.
Thank you.
All right. So before we proceed with Tom George's presentation, are there any other Metro District representatives that would like to talk about their outreach efforts? And if not, that's fine. I just want to make sure. Okay. Tom, do you have a brief presentation you want to do? We don't need to belabor this, but I know you had a presentation, so would you like to do that?
Sure, I can. I can be very brief with it. I know I saw
Okay.
10 minutes for this on the agenda. We're already past that,
Yeah.
so I can be very sensitive to the
Okay.
time. But I think I have a couple, if I can share my screen, I maybe have a couple of slides here that might just be helpful to put this all together for you.
That'd be great.
I don't know if someone needs to give me the ability to do that, or Chesterine, if you've got my slide deck.
Tom, you should be able to at the top right, the up arrow for share.
I'm showing that I need to be, it says organizer or presenter. So I maybe just need presenter ability.
Here, I can pull it up too, if you give me just a second.
I've got it now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I gave it to you. This is Candace. Hi there.
Okay. Are you all seeing this slide?
Yep.
Great. real quick, just to recap that SRIA is, I just want to emphasize that when we refer to the ARI, or you'll hear somebody maybe say SRIA mill levy, I want to make sure that we differentiate between those things, because the ARI, the Aurora Regional Improvement Mill Levy, that comes from the Aurora Model Service Plan. And there is no such thing as the SRIA mill levy. SRIA does not impose taxes. SRIA does not have the authority to impose taxes. The individual metro districts here are 22 members who are contractual members to SRIA. It's a contractually established authority. 22 members and the city of Aurora, they combined are SRIA. SRIA only receives ARI mill levy revenues from these districts. So it's the ARI mill levy of these districts under their service plan that then flows to SRIA. SRIA uses that to fund regional infrastructure. This is the current map. I think Jurinsky showed this also, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, but this is the map where the 22 districts are located. This might help transpose your comment about the projects. SRIA's original purpose was to provide regional improvements consistent with ARI master plans. That's another term in here, is ARI master plan. That is a term of art in the establishing agreement, which is the contract that established SRIA. I want to emphasize again that established agreement has a finite list of projects. It's essentially a charter of SRIA, and says SRIA can only participate in these 10 projects and nothing else. And these are the 10. This is essentially the quick status of those. 5 on the top, 5 on the bottom, with the green line in the middle. That's just to separate them by what's been completed and what's not been completed so far. SRIA did approve a master plan, an ARI master plan, number 1 and number 2. Number 2 was really a restatement of number 1 back in 2018, and did issue bonds in 2018, used that money to fund these projects you see here. So contributed toward Harvest Road, contributed to East Quincy, there the E470 ramp reconfiguration and lane additions. Also contributed $2.3 million to the Gun Club Road improvements, the initial work that's been done there, and funded design initial components of 7 and 8. You see the Aurora Parkway extension and Guard Trail Road. So of SRIA's list of projects, there are only 5 remaining. The next 3 that are in priority, as we've been planning, is Gun Club Road, Aurora Parkway extension, the bridge only, over 470, and the Guard Trail Road. The last 2, Councilmember Bergen, to your comment, is Arapahoe Road lane additions and Quincy Avenue improvements. Those are still on the list. To date, there are no plans. Those are maybe just so far out that they're not part of the conversation yet. Here's a part. I apologize for the quality of this map, but I just wanted, this is going back to 2018 as well. The map isn't up to date as to the districts that are members, but it does show the locations of the 10 projects I described, to kind of give you a sense of the geography of the 10 projects in addition to the location of the districts. Quick recap of timeline. I won't belabor this, but SRIA was created in 2017. 2018 was when the master plans 1 and 2 were adopted. SRIA did issue those bonds. 2018 implemented those projects. In 22, we started the discussion on funding the next round of projects with the master plan number 3 that has not been adopted yet, but it's in discussions. In 23, we really started working on this framework for service plan amendments that's before you today, and also what master plan number 3 would look like. I mentioned this previously, but in August of last year, about this time last year, we presented this proposed service plan amendments to the SRIA board. The SRIA board unanimously supported it. We then spent several months on what I call the road show of the member districts, presenting this plan. Over that several month period, each of those districts approved it, which is the set of resolutions in your packet. And then in March and August of this year, we've presented the updates to the SRIA board, including even just this week, and started discussions with the city of Aurora on master plan number 3 projects funding. Kind of all of this has gotten us where we are right now here in August of 24. These slides are on the current mill levy system. Jurinsky did a nice job explaining that and the proposal, so I won't spend time on that unless there are questions. This is just sort of a recap of what she had in a different format. That we can break these districts out into 4 groups essentially. I do want to give you a little insight into why we ended up with the lesser of 30 mills, or your current mill levy or your current debt service levy, and that is because the way that Tier 3 levy works is that it's in the earlier to occur of year 40, or when a district pays off its debt, Tier 3 levy becomes the average debt service levy the prior 10 years, which is an impossible number for anyone to know right now. So we figured for SRIA to utilize those revenues and have any accurate projection or somewhat accurate projection in order to support its debt financing to support these projects, is we looked at how could we fix that, and what if we were going to fix that at a specific number, what number would we even use? And what we did is looked at projections where we thought districts were going to land based on their current debt situations. 30 came out to be kind of a good median or even a good average to use. So we said, well, what if we fixed everybody at 30? Well, then as especially we saw property values do what they've done the last couple of years, and we saw mill levies do what they've done. That's meant for a lot of these districts, the mill levies have decreased below 30. And so we realized that none of the existing districts ought to be asked or would be willing to have a tier 3 levy higher than where they currently were today because of that average look back. So for those districts, so we came up with, how about the lesser of 30 mills or your current mill levy at the end of last year. So the 23 levy for collection in 24. That's how we ended up with that number. That's why you do have this grouping. Group 1 being those that already have a debt service levy under 30. Group 2 is those who have a debt service. I'm sorry, I have that backwards. Group 1 is those whose debt service levy is higher than 30, so they'll fix at 30. Group 2, their debt service levies are currently below 30, so they'll end up below 30. Group 3 are the districts that don't have current residents. They are actually willing to increase their tier 1 levy from 1 to 5 and then lock in tier 3 at 30. The rationale for that is that those districts are grouped around a particular project, being the Aurora Parkway extension. Their early increase in the tier 1 levy from 1 to 5 helps provide more revenue to support a project like that. I think also you'd hear from them that benefits, they see some benefit in that mill levy being fixed from 5. From day 1, it's 5 instead of going from 1 to 5 when you get from tier 1 to tier 2. And then group 4 are the two sets of districts that aren't participating in this or don't have a service plan amendment proposed before you today. Real quickly, and then I'll stop, I promise, is the benefits as we see them, very generally described benefits here. Let me note again, each of the member districts have approved this service plan amendment. On behalf of SREA, we're presenting this today, but SREA doesn't have a service plan, right? SREA is not a metro district. We just are trying to do this the most efficient way possible for 17 service plan amendments. So we've been charged with bringing this, packaging it all together in a nice package and bringing it to you and to City Council. The big benefits are this clearly establishes a set tier 3 levy. You don't have to do a calculation in the future. You know exactly what it is. It allows these amending members to anticipate their future property taxes because they'll know what that tier 3 levy is, whether they're in that 40-year cycle, if they're in year 5 or if they're in year 20 or year 30, they'll know what's coming. That protects against any factors that might increase the tier 3 levy, meaning, fluctuations in property values and market values and mill levies, different boards. It also allows for more certain revenue projections for purposes of financing these improvements. I just noted that tier 1 levy increase from some of the members will help give us a little more support, financial support for improvements. And then also clarifies an ambiguity in that tier 3 levy. It's unclear in the model service plan what would happen if in year 40 the district still had debt service levy in place. Would it be a doubling up of the tier 3 levy plus its debt service levy or not? Rather than worry about what the intent was, we'll clarify that by saying it's at 40. And one of the districts has debt that currently matures in year 42. So we clarify that service plan to say, no, their tiered levy will start when they pay off the debt or year 42, but it won't double up on them in year 40 and 41. And that's it. Happy to take any questions anyone might have.
All right, thanks, Tom. Councilmember Lawson, questions on that or I guess anything else so far from this on this topic?
No questions, Councilmember Gardner.
All right. Councilmember Bergen or Mayor Kaufman, any questions?
No. Oh, I'm sorry, just one real quick one, if I could. Mr. Chairman, so what is the schedule again, in terms of bringing these forward to council? Because we're getting so many questions from constituents. We really need a good and thorough presentation. I think both if it's going to go to study session and to the floor.
Yeah, Mayor Kaufman, it's September 9th.
Okay.
For study session and council, and staff can definitely give another presentation. I'm sure Tom would be glad to as well.
September 9th to study session? And you said and council?
Yeah, it was requested to be dual listed to meet their timelines.
Okay.
Just one final question. And maybe this would be for staff. Do they plan? Or is the one, because that was one mentioned from 2018?
Councilmember Bergen, you cut out at the first part of your question. Would you mind repeating that?
I'm sorry. I was asking if they have to submit a new master plan as part of this or not. I know there was one done in 2018 that was just mentioned.
I don't believe there is a legal requirement to submit a master plan with this. I think, it's all intertwined and it's all packaged, but our attorneys have looked at the establishing agreement and attorneys, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe there is a legal requirement for the master plan to come forth with these service plan amendments.
And what would the master plan do that's different than
Tom,
current?
do you want to take that one?
Yeah, happy to help with that. So the idea of a master plan, again, master plan is a term of art in the is actually ARI master plan is a term of art that's used in the establishing agreement. The intent for it is to prioritize it, or to identify the prioritization of the project. So if the establishing agreement allows 10 projects to be funded, then the master plan is supposed to identify how SREA is actually going to prioritize and fund those. And that's what number 1 and 2 did. Number 1's first prioritized Harvest Road improvements, and the master plan number 2 set out the prioritization of the next subset of projects. And then we expect master plan number 3 would then build upon that and identify the next set of projects that we funded, and how, and what amounts they'd be funded. We expect that to include Aurora Parkway Bridge extension, Gartrell Road improvements, and a portion of Gun Club Road. But that is not, and that's approved by the SREA Board of Directors. That's not approved by City Council. That's not approved by the member district boards themselves. That's just the SREA Board of Directors, which includes the 22 districts plus the City of Aurora's representative.
Okay, follow up if I might.
Go ahead. Yep.
Well, okay, so it looks like the 3 are prioritized: Gartrell Road, Aurora Parkway, and Gun Club Road. You said a portion of Gun Club Road. So I guess my concern, because I get a lot of people wanting us to widen Gun Club Road. We don't want to just I guess my question is, how could you do a portion of Gun Club Road and not the whole thing if we're going out to the bond market?
So to be quite frank about it, SREA doesn't have the bonding funding capacity to pay for all of Gun Club Road. As you know, it's a very big, expensive project with multiple participants. So that's a City of Aurora project. SREA is the proposal now is SREA to do the best they can in its debt capacity to raise some funds to contribute toward that. Understanding that other parties are also going to contribute toward that project to get it fully completed. Like we did in the past, that 2.3 million SREA contributed in 2018, that was matched by Arapahoe County. So 2.3 million came from Arapahoe County, 2.3 million from SREA. SREA doesn't have the wherewithal to fund the entire project.
Okay, so even if you're going to the bond market for the most you can, right?
That's the current plan, yes.
Okay, and
none of that's been approved yet by the SREA board. Just want to clarify that SREA board has not adopted the master plan yet and hasn't approved a bond resolution yet to authorize that, but that's in the works.
Okay, and I know that the city is working obviously also on Gun Club to find funding sources as well. Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that. I was muted. Appreciate the conversation and the presentations. I think it was helpful to go through all that. So I guess with that, Councilmember Lawson, any additional questions? And then are you okay with moving this forward for consideration at the September 9th study session?
No additional questions. Thank you for the presentation, and I approve it moving forward.
And I do as well. Thank you, Cesarina and Tom, for your presentations. All right, so we try to make up some time on these next couple items, but I appreciate everybody sticking with us. Next up, somewhat related item, IGA between the City of Aurora and SREA for the transfer of transportation impact fee revenues. Michael Kerrigan.
Afternoon, committee members. I'm Michael Kerrigan, the Special Districts Administrator with the Office of Development Assistance. I am before you today to present the request for a resolution to approve an intergovernmental agreement between the city and the South Aurora Regional Improvement Authority, or SREA. The resolution is a part of a package of council items previously discussed that were being driven by an upcoming potential SREA financing. This agreement is being proposed in order for the city to support SREA in the regional improvements it is authorized to construct. According to the IGA, the city will transfer to SORIA the city's collected transportation capital impact fees from properties developing within the boundaries of the 22 metropolitan districts that currently make up SORIA, plus any future metro districts that choose to join SORIA. The city will make these transfers within 60 days of receiving the impact fee dollars, and it will do this from the execution date of the IGA until the termination and final dissolution of SORIA. SORIA will use the impact fee revenues consistent with its establishment agreement to plan, design, construct, install, acquire, relocate, redevelop, and or finance the regional improvements it is authorized to undertake. SORIA intends to use the impact fee revenues as an additional revenue pledge for the upcoming bond issuance. Since the impact fee revenues are only received as a result of the building permit, the total amount of impact fee revenues is only estimated, and it is estimated to be approximately $3.39 million over the next 12 years. That figure is based on the current estimate of SORIA members districts build out and the 2024 cost for the impact fee. This contract is not a multi-fiscal year obligation of the city, and it will require annual appropriations from council. Representatives of SORIA are also here to discuss as well. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for the presentation. Councilmember Lawson, any questions, and are you okay moving this item forward?
No questions, and I approve it moving forward.
I am as well. Thanks for the presentation. All right, next up, Ryan Lance, Career Service Commission update.
Yes, good afternoon. Ryan Lance, Director of Human Resources. Annually, we do present a Career Service Commission overview, and I will pass it over to our Employee Relations Manager, Pat Sylvester, to go ahead and walk you through this.
Good afternoon. In regards to an overview update on the Career Service Commission, the Career Service Commission basically is how it begins is career service employees who are issued any type of advanced discipline, suspensions, involuntary demotions, fines, terminations. The employees have the right to appeal that to their department head or council appointee. If that appeal is denied, then the employee then has the right to appeal their discipline to the Career Service Commission. Next slide, Ryan. So as far as the commission is comprised of 5 citizens who set forth in section 9.3 of the city charter. The commission is voluntary. Members serve a 6-year term. Currently, we have only 3 members on the commission. We are actually scheduled to do interviews for our 2 vacant seats this week on Thursday. So how does the appeal process work? The appeal process is basically the commission initiates the appeal. The employee initiates a written appeal to the commission based on the employee policy book. The written appeal must clearly state the reasons why they're appealing that level of discipline. The commission does not have the power to increase any discipline, but they either have the decision to either upheld the discipline or reduce or reverse the discipline in its entirety. So career service hearings can be open to the public or closed. It depends on the type of discipline that the employee is being issued. For example, if it's the employee is being terminated for some type of sexual harassment misconduct, those may end up having to be closed for confidentiality, depending on the nature of the sexual harassment violation. An assistant city attorney serves as counsel for the defending department. The employee who is appealing their discipline has the option to retain their own outside counsel, or the employee can represent themselves during this proceeding. So as far as career service hearings, last year in 2023, there was one hearing from court administration. The employee submitted their appeal to the commission in January of 2023. The appeal hearing was held in July of 2023. The outcome of that hearing was that the commission did upheld that 5-day unpaid suspension for the employee. Second hearing was also held in 2023, again in court administration. The employee did appeal that their discipline to the Commission in September of 2023. However, the employee did decide to withdraw their appeal in December. So as a result, that outcome was upheld, which was a termination. So far this year, in 2024, we've had an employee appeal their discipline in April of this year. However, by May of this year, the employee decided to withdraw their appeal, so their termination was upheld. A second appeal took place in Housing and Community Services. It was for a one-day suspension. The employee submitted their appeal for that discipline in 2024. However, by April of 2024, the employee decided to withdraw their appeal. So that one-day suspension was also upheld. Questions?
Great. Appreciate the update and the presentation. I do not have any questions. Councilmember Lawson, do you have any questions?
No, I do not. I appreciate the update as well.
All right. Thank you,
thank you.
everyone. Take care.
All right, last item, Ryan Lance, 2025 City and Employee Benefits Program.
Okay, great. Ryan Lance, Director of Human Resources. And I am happy to present the annual overview of our benefits. And this is specific to our benefits for 2025. That'll be effective January 1st. I'll spend, the focus will be on the medical, and the rest of it will be really quick updates. As you can see here on the bottom right, this is our benefit offerings. Our standard, we have core benefits that really take that medical, dental, vision component of the benefit offering. We have city paid benefits, life insurance, accidental death and dismemberment, short-term, long-term disability, and offering an employee assistance program. And then we have a slew of voluntary benefits that are listed there. And we do have additional benefits that aren't part of our annual renewal process, but we're very proud of what our benefit programs are. Here's a summary of where we're at with our 2025 benefit renewals. You can see here on the left, we have a list of what the actual benefit is. The vendor or the provider is listed in the column next to it. We go through an annual renewal process for most of our benefits, meaning we have to make sure we hear from them in terms of what the new rates are, any changes to coverage. And then on the right-hand side, we have some comments. It's good news is we are under our budget allocation for this year. And those numbers are really meant to be maxes in case there are some adjustments to our benefits from now until January 1st. Like I mentioned, I'll spend a little bit more time on the medical. This year, we did conduct a request for proposal for adding a second medical provider. Last time we did that was over 4 years ago, and we've really been building up our program to make us really competitive in this process so we can bring on a medical provider. There's many advantages: providing choice, flexibility, broader network, more coverage and plan design changes and options, and then of course premiums. We have a diverse employee population, so we want to offer diverse benefits to all employees. We also want to make sure, as we are considering bringing on a second medical provider, is avoiding what they call the death spiral, meaning after 2, 3, 4 years, one of the carriers isn't affordable and we have to get rid of that carrier. So we are really focused on short and long-term financial responsibility and affordability, and we're in a really good position to maintain long-term relationships. We did have 2 finalists, Anthem and United Healthcare. And out of that group and those finalists, there were presentations, evaluations. So all the evaluation and input came from obviously HR, our benefit broker, IMA. We did have a specific RFP assessment group that officially reviewed and scored it. Benefits committee is always involved. And with that, there was a proposal and an approval, a proposal to executive management and an approval to select UHC as our medical provider. We did have a list of factors and considerations between Anthem and United Healthcare. Both of them came very strong with presentations. You can see the list there from number 2 all the way to number 12. It was really a competitive process between the 2 of them. United Healthcare just came in substantially lower than Anthem did on the cost. And so that was the main factor for why we went with United Healthcare opposed to Anthem. So starting January 1st, we're going to be offering United Healthcare alongside Kaiser Permanente. So a real quick overview of what the plan structure or the coverage levels look like. So for Kaiser, we're going to continue to offer 4 out of the 5 plans. We have a high deductible health plan, an HDHP, and then we have 2 DHMO plans, one that has a deductible 200, another one at 750, and then we do have an HMO plan. We are removing the triple option, which was intended to allow medical providers outside of the Kaiser network. So now that we have United Healthcare, that plan isn't nearly as vital or important from a network standpoint. But we do have 88 employees that are enrolled in that plan, and we're going to make sure that we are hand-holding them through the process to help evaluate and select a new plan, whether that's with Kaiser or with United Healthcare. There is a change to our high deductible health plan. IRS regulations have us increase the deductible minimums by $50 for a single or $100 for a family. We are making a pretty substantial change to the cost share or the employee, sorry, I was supposed to say employee, the employee portion of the HMO from 20% to now the employees will be paying 25%. This is a plan that is not beneficial to the city or to the employees. So we're going to be working on educational measures to make sure that they have a good plan to select if they want to move to a different plan. And then we did choose to increase the health savings account. That is money that the city contributes if an employee is enrolled on the high deductible health plan. So we're increasing the actual city contribution to those plans. On the United Healthcare side of things, we are offering 3 plan options. We'll do a high deductible health plan that matches the Kaiser high deductible health plan. And then we're offering a $750 deductible plan and a $1,000 deductible plan. It is important to know that the high deductible health plan with United Healthcare is going to have their Choice Plus network, which is the broadest network. So it has the broadest amount of specialists, doctors, hospitals. And then for the 750 and 1,000 plan, we're going to be offering UHC's Colorado Doctors Plan Network, which is also a very large network as well. This is meant for the record more than anything else. It's meant to have it in the slides to show what our plan design and our coverage levels are. And you can see here, Kaiser, we have our 4 plans offered here, and then it really goes down to the deductibles, to out-of-pocket maxes, office visits, and what's being covered by Kaiser. And then you can see on the United Healthcare, we have the chart listed there as well. So that'll be for reference. And then what's really the last piece and component of it is what's the city paying and what are employees paying. So again, these charts are for the record, but I do want to highlight here the employee monthly cost that the city that the employees are paying. You can see in 2024 how much they were paying on a monthly basis versus 2025. The increases, we're always cognizant of how much employees are having to pay, but you can see the cost increases here with the substantial increase will be like I outlined beforehand on the HMO plan here. And then for United Healthcare, you can see where we're setting the premiums still very competitive. We benchmark against 24 local municipalities, and even with our United Healthcare premiums, we are top of the list when it comes to our benefit offerings and our costs associated with it. So moving on to a couple of quick updates with our dental. Our dental, we're seeing no more than a 2.1% renewal increase. And we have no coverage changes and no changes to how much the employees are paying in terms of the percentage of increases. The minimum, we have very minimum rate increases. So they're just paying that 2.1. It'll really come out to be less than that of the increase to employees. We have Delta Dental as our medical provider. A reminder that we are self-funded with this. So the city pays the actual dental claims, but we do pay dental to be part of their network and to administer our plan. And Delta Dental is not increasing their rates that they're charging the city. Here's a list of the other benefits we have. I won't go into details on these because as you can see, we're maintaining the same plan, same costs for our vision, life insurance, long-term disability. I do have highlighted here a short-term disability. We are actively going through the process of moving to self-funded and taking the administration and the funding of short-term disability in-house. And then you can see all of our other partners listed on the bottom, and those relationships are just important to make sure that they're servicing our employees for the benefits that they are electing. And then lastly, our open enrollment is going to be very similar to what we've done in the past, October 26th through November 17th, so 3-week period. For the second year in a row, this will be an active enrollment, meaning employees are going to be required to make their elections in order to have coverage for January 1st, 2025. This is part of the agreement with bringing on a second medical provider, is they want to make sure that they have an opportunity to have employees potentially select UHC as their medical insurance company. And then we'll continue to do our open enrollment presentations, various facilities throughout the city. There'll be individual presentations by Kaiser and United Healthcare, and we're going to do a benefit and wellness expo like we do every year, which we have very high participation. So we're excited about that. So with that, if you have any questions for me.
Yeah, I have one question, but I think you kind of answered it. So my only concern, I guess, is on the healthcare option, United, and it sounds like they will not have Health One in their network potentially starting September 1st. But the list you showed of kind of how you guys determine with, I think network was 5th on the list cost, and it sounds like United was quite a bit cheaper in terms of premium cost than Anthem is kind of how you answered that, it sounds like. So I have Health One is a large network, or they have a lot of facilities here in Colorado, kind of in the area. And so that's the only reason why I point that out, is because, if the folks that enroll in United don't have access to Health One, that could be an issue potentially.
Yes, and that was on our list of priorities and considerations, as you mentioned here, the actual network here. At the time of going through this process, there wasn't any concerns about that network. Since then, we are actively working with our benefit broker and United Healthcare just to monitor where they're at with that negotiation. The general consensus from the broker and the medical industry is these usually become 11th hour agreements that pan out, and the anticipation is that they will be part of that network. If they're not, we are going to revisit conversations with them, not to say that we can do a whole lot, but we can explore additional network options with them.
Okay. Mayor Kaufman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ryan, I remember one year that since I've been mayor, getting a solicitation from a company, and I can't, financial services or insurance or something like that, and it wasn't anything that the city paid part of. And it was just said that somehow it was designated as a preferred provider by the city, and it was seen as a benefit. But I mean, it was so my address was shared with an outside entity. Is that still going on?
Yeah, so that probably came from Farmers Insurance, and it had to do with our home and auto. Traditionally, if we have discount rates for home and auto, those companies require some type of solicitation out to employees to get enrollment. During that time, and we did have conversations with them, and they've since pulled back that requirement. So employees still have the benefit of getting those discounts without having these mailers come out automatically. But we still do have an agreement with them. They're just not doing those mailers out.
Yeah, I think is that done on a competitive basis?
Yes, we do have our broker IMA, and they're the ones who will market out and present the city with the best deals, the best options for these voluntary benefits. So it is a competitive process. We just don't manage it. The broker manages those.
Mr. Chairman, at some point in time, it might be good for your committee to review that practice.
All right, appreciate that. Councilmember Lawson, questions?
Yeah, yes, I just have one question. Hey, Ryan, in terms of the dental, is Delta Dental the only, would you guys look into maybe other dental providers? Because Delta Dental is okay, but when you have to get crowns and things like that, you still have to pay a lot out of pocket for dental. Is Delta Dental the only company around, or is there maybe a reason why we just choose that one?
We've had a good partnership with them, but they are up for an RFP next year. So we will be going through an RFP next year for Delta Dental. I will say though, what you're mentioning is more of what we call plan design or coverage levels. So it's what the city has as a cost share or how much the city's going to actually cover. So we do evaluate that on an annual basis. So when we go out to RFP, we're going to continue to evaluate that. A couple years ago, we did add a second plan option. So an employee can pay a little bit more out of their paycheck, but get more coverage versus less out of your paycheck and less coverage. So we will be revisiting that next year.
Okay, I know I have the higher coverage because dental is expensive. So, and a lot of times you have to pay a lot out of coverage. So just wondering if that was something to be considered. So thank you so much for the presentation. No more questions, Councilmember Gardner.
All right. Thanks, Ryan, for the presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we will go ahead and adjourn, and we'll see everybody at our meeting in September.
Councilmember Gardner, I hate to interrupt. This is Teresa. I just have a real quick update, and I won't take very much time. It didn't make the agenda. I apologize. But wanted to give you an update on the 2024 Aurora Water sales revenue bonds. We came to you last month with an ordinance that you approved moving forward to study session. Since that time, we've been working with Aurora Water on reevaluating their capital funding needs. So we're going to come back to study session in the next couple of months, and the ordinance will be changed. It was a maximum of 100 million. It will now be 150 million. So I wanted to just bring that to your attention that that will be updated, and we'll still be coming with that, but there will be a different borrowing amount. So.
All right. Appreciate the update. Thank you very much, Teresa.
Thanks.
All right, everybody. Have a good afternoon.